Hey there. If you have seen any of my videos, you probably know me as the solo travel girl, always sharing tips on packing light, getting through airport security, finding the best coffee in strange places, and chasing sunsets alone. But today, I'm going to pull back the curtain on something that's way more personal. Because one of the reasons I get to travel is I'm a freelance writer, so I can work from anywhere basically, as long as I've got good internet. The day job is writing articles and content. And no, not the glamorous kind. I'm talking SEO heavy, blog posts, articles for home improvement websites, and content about things like a guide to murder hornets. That one was actually pretty interesting. But my real love goes to fiction writing, romantic thrillers with coastal storms, dangerous secrets, and a whole lot of emotional mess. In this video, I'm going to share how I wrote my very first novel, The Water's Edge, from the messy first draft to my final rewrite. It took me 3 years. I wrote it more times than I want to admit. I started over, I got stuck, I almost gave up, but I didn't. I started over again. And today I want to tell you how I went from an idea of a story with zero outline to a full manuscript, how I finally got serious and then finished the whole thing in just 3 months, and what I learned along the way. So let's rewind. I've always been a writer. I've always enjoyed writing, and I wanted to write this fiction novel. I didn't start with a plan. I had an idea of a story. I had a scene, a woman alone in a beach house during a storm, haunted by her past and maybe something else. That was it. No outline, no character arcs, no idea what genre actually I was going to write this in. I just started writing. And to be honest, that's how a lot of us start. That's how a lot of writers' process begins. You feel a spark and then you chase it. But then about 20,000 words in, I hit a wall. I didn't know where this story was going. I didn't know if it was going to be a great romance or a great mystery. My characters were wandering in and out with no real direction. I had chapters that didn't really flow with other chapters. So what did I do? I basically quit. I stopped. I closed the file. I just took a break and worked on other things. And I told myself, maybe I'm really not cut out to be a fiction writer. Maybe I should just stick to the nonfiction stuff. Spoiler alert, I was cut out to write fiction. I just needed a better plan. Actually, I needed a plan. But I digress. Over the next 2 years, I repeated that cycle. I'd start writing, I'd get stuck, I'd rewrite, I'd get overwhelmed, take a break, start over, write things that didn't really move the story along, but I really liked it. Sometimes I'd keep the opening line and delete everything else. Sometimes I'd open the draft, read a page, wince, and close it again. Sound familiar? But here's what I learned. The mess, the start and stop, that's not failure. That's part of the writing process. Every bad draft was just me trying to find the real story that was underneath the writing. And then one day, after finding myself kind of hitting a wall and stuck, I was about a third of the way through this book, not knowing where it was going to go. I finally said to myself, okay, this story needs to have a life. Either you walk away or you figure out a way to finish the rest. So I set an intention to finish my novel, and I honed in on my focus because up to this point, I had dedicated myself to writing several hours per week, but I would work on different projects. Sometimes I'd work on work stuff. Sometimes I'd work on nonfiction stuff that I liked, or a short story. And then sometimes I would work on this novel. So I realized I needed to make myself a commitment. The time that I set aside to write each week was going to be specifically and only for writing this novel. And I gave myself a deadline, 6 months. I told my other writer friends, I told my family, I created a loose outline, just enough to know the beginning, the middle, and the end. And then, I kid you not, something magical happened. Sounds silly, but for those years, I know this sounds silly. But for those years I spent with just doing a little time here and there with the characters and that story, it made it harder for me to get back into it every time I tried, which was part of the reason why it was taking me so long. Every time I would pick it back up after being gone for a while, I would have to get myself back into their world. But by focusing just on their world, things started coming together. When I got serious about finishing this novel, it came to me. I mean, the entire story, how it should all play out, the ending. I didn't know what the ending was going to be, but it came to me one day and it lit a fire inside of me once I knew where it was going. Characters started making sense. Plot threads started connecting. I stopped second guessing every word and I started focusing on just telling this story. The more time I spent with it and those characters, the better it got. And in 3 months, I finished it and I wrote what I hadn't been able to write for 3 years. So you may be wondering what it is. It's called The Water's Edge. It's about a woman who escapes her past and finds refuge in a quiet Texas coastal town. She thinks the worst is behind her, but is her past really gone? Shadows cling to her new life. There are whispers in the walls, questions no one wants to answer, and the man she loves may be hiding a truth deadlier than anything she left behind. It's romantic, it's moody, it's coastal, emotional, and unsettling. Think Colleen Hoover meets Lisa Jewell with a little Ruth Ware storm cloud hovering above. Okay, back to the actual writing process. Here's one thing I have learned. Finishing a first draft, it's only half the work. Once I typed the end, it was a relief. Yes, it felt really good, but I immediately realized it wasn't the end. There were rewrites and edits ahead. There were some plot holes. There were characters who were a little too flat and a pacing problem in chapter 3. I searched for beta readers to get feedback on the story, and feedback, wow, it's like opening up all your vulnerabilities all at once, because this story you created has become this special thing. It's your baby. And now you're exposing it, putting it out there in the light of day. And you don't know what readers are going to think. So yeah, readers have feedback. Some of it stings, but they're usually right. After all, that's who the story is for. So I've had to go back again, rework some things, cut scenes. I've saved them in a folder because I'm not quite ready to let go of them. I've added layers, I've deleted chapters, I rewrote the beginning, I can't tell you how many times. And that is where I actually realized editing is where the true story emerges. Writing a book, it's kind of like carving a sculpture out of stone. The first draft gives you the block of marble, editing gives you the shape. So if you've ever thought, maybe I want to write a book someday, maybe watching this video is your sign that you should start today. But just know this, first draft will suck. The second probably will too, just less. You'll want to quit. Don't. Momentum is better than perfection. You can't fix a blank page, but you can fix a messy one. You don't have to be the best writer in the room. You just have to be the one who finishes the book. So what's next for me? Now I'm working on sending query letters to agents, and I'm working on a short story sneak peek for some of my readers. And then I'm diving into book 2. I've already got a couple ideas rattling around up here. Maybe one where a recently divorced woman signs up for a guided solo travel adventure through the Amalfi Coast. She's not expecting fireworks, just fresh air, good wine, maybe a little closure. But the trip quickly becomes anything but ordinary. 2 different men drawn to her, people disappearing. I don't know. Let me know what you think. So this channel is shifting a little bit along with me. If you're a mystery reader who loves interesting locations, behind the scenes stuff, or you're an aspiring writer looking for some honest insight, then please stick around. Subscribe, comment, let me know what you're working on. This isn't just a travel channel anymore. It's kind of where fiction meets freedom. And I hope you're here for it. Thanks for watching. Take care.